The committee will come to order. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Ways and Means Committee for the 115th Congress, especially our new members who we'll introduce in just a moment. The purpose of this meeting is to officially organize the committee for the 115th Congress and to approve its rules. As members of the Ways and Means Committee, we have the privilege and the responsibility of making policy decisions that affect every single American. This Congress will have a historic opportunity to make an incredible difference for the people, families, and job creators in all of our communities. I'm honored and thrilled to work with all of you. Before we turn our focus to the business at hand, I want to recognize Mr. Levin for his outstanding work and leadership as ranking member over these past years. Sandy, we are grateful for your service as ranking member and top Democrat leader. I know you'll continue to be a strong voice and a good friend on the committee moving forward. I'd also like to welcome and congratulate ranking member Richie Neal. This is an exciting time for both of our parties. With your commitment to solving problems, your detailed understanding and knowledge of the complex issues under our committee's jurisdiction, I know with your leadership, it will make our work more impactful. And Mr. Neal, I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As I mentioned, we have an incredible opportunity as Congress to advance solutions that help Americans from all walks of life. It all starts today with approving our committee's rules, and it'll continue throughout the 115th Congress with an open, inclusive legislative process that thoughtfully considers ideas from members on both sides of the aisle. No matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, a new or returning member, every member of this committee has valuable insights and expertise. Every one of you will play an active role in shaping the legislative solutions we deliver, solutions that will improve the lives of all Americans. I'm excited to get to work. This time I recognize the ranking member for any opening comments he may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your gracious comments and the excitement that awaits all of us in the new year with many of the challenging issues that are going to come through this committee. For me professionally as well as personally, I think it's an opportunity to remind members and the staffers of what a great privilege it is to be on this committee and for the staff to work for this committee. I still believe that the keenest interest in Congress is getting on this committee, and we have a long and distinguished history, and I know that the members of the committee are up to not only that acknowledgement but remaining consistent to it. I think in this new year, with this new Congress, that issues as currently published and the early deliberations that you and I have had have been very helpful. And I also think that a handshake in terms of what we can do, in terms of making sure that there's a high level of trust, is very important as well. There's going to be an ambitious agenda on our side. I think it's fair to say we intend to focus middle-class challenges as we go to the new year and expanding opportunities for all. And I will have an opportunity as we get down to the committee rules, Mr. Chairman, to ask you a couple of questions if that sits well.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce the new members on my side of the aisle. I'm honored to welcome David Schweikert, Jackie Walorski, and Carlos Curbelo. Each of our new members comes to us with a wealth of policy knowledge and real-world experience. Most importantly, each of them understands how the decisions made by our committee affect the lives of people in their districts and across the country. While all three of our new members come from different backgrounds, they all have one important thing in common. They are strong, vocal leaders focused on solving problems for the people of their districts. But don't take it from me, take it from their words and actions. Our first new member, Mr. Schweikert, represents the 6th District of Arizona. In fact, he's just the second member, Ways and Means history from that state. Not only does David have a detailed understanding of complex tax, trade, and healthcare issues, he has a passion for solving them. Last week, in describing why he's excited to be a part of this committee, he discussed that passion and said, and I quote, "Where do you go if you want to do the hard stuff? It's the Ways and Means Committee." Confident that David's knowledge, expertise, and drive will be beneficial to our efforts on tax reform and in many other areas. Mr. Schweikert, welcome. Thank you for your service. Our next new member, Ms. Walorski, represents the 2nd District of Indiana. And so why is she excited to be part of our committee? She is, quote, eager to tackle some of the nation's biggest challenges. That's exactly why we're excited to have her. Last year, as part of our Better Way agenda, Ms. Walorski demonstrated her strong leadership She was closely involved in developing solutions to help more Americans escape poverty and climb the economic ladder. We're all eager to work with her in the coming months. Ms. Walorski, Jackie, welcome, and thank you for your service. Finally, I'm honored to recognize Mr. Curbelo, who represents the 26th District of Florida. As a South Florida native and a small business owner, Carlos is intimately aware of the daily challenges facing Main Street job creators. And as the son of Cuban immigrants who came to the United States to escape tyranny in the 1960s, Carlos understands the importance of ensuring that our nation is and remains a place where all people can build a better life if they dream big and they work hard. In a statement last week, Carlos said he looks forward to advancing bipartisan solutions that will improve the lives of those in his district and across the country. That's the enthusiasm and the sense of purpose we all bring to this committee every day. So, Mr. Curbelo, welcome, and thank you for your service. With that, I now recognize Ranking Member Neal to introduce his new members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the committee after a 6-year sabbatical. Brian Higgins. Brian is from Buffalo, New York. He not only is one smart guy, he's an author and an individual who engages issues from top to bottom. It's a pleasure for me to call him a friend personally as well as professionally. I've known him for a long period of time. We're delighted that he is with us again. Terry Sewell has an Ivy League background. She is also a good friend and confidant, and she represents, I believe, the most rural district on the Democratic side. As she pointed out during the steering and policy deliberations, it's been a long time since Alabama had a member of the Ways and Means Committee, although I think Mr. Levin and Mr. Lewis and I all sat with a member from Alabama on this committee at one time. Susan Del Bene has a district that has a close reflection of agricultural interests in the Pacific Northwest. She also has a substantial tax background. She is, like the two previous members of the committee that I've just acknowledged, really smart. And I think that the other thing that I can say with great pleasure and satisfaction, that the members of this committee, the new ones as well, they're all pretty much mainstream Democrats. And I think that the opportunities for us going forward for substantive conversations it'll be challenging in this atmosphere, but not to miss the point. They all have been very capable in their previous professions. So I thank you for that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I join in welcoming our new members. Brian, it's good to have you back. So our only item on the agenda today is the adoption of the Ways and Means Committee rules for the 115th Congress. Each member received a copy of the new rules along with the green sheet noting the changes from the 114th Congress in advance of the meeting. Our rules remain similar to the rules we've adopted in years past, but this year, working with the ranking member, we're making some updates to the rules to take into account modern committee practice and technology. I'll highlight a few of these changes. First, the rules change the ratio for the Subcommittee on Tax Policy, which will now include 9 Republicans and 6 Democrats, to be more consistent with the ratio of the full committee. They also update our regular meeting day and streamline the way we handle subcommittee referrals and discharges, in each case consistent with our actual practice. Finally, I was also pleased to work with the ranking member on a change to allow members to have electronic access to mark up transcripts. I thank Ranking Member Neal and his team for working with us on these updates. This time I recognize him for any opening remarks he may have on the committee rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just before I do that, I'd like to introduce Brandon Casey, who is the new staff director at Ways and Means. He's been with me for a considerable period of time, and I do want to acknowledge him. He's a pretty modest guy who cheers for the Chicago Bears.
That's an oxymoron there, Richard.
Mr. Chairman, during our caucus yesterday, there were a couple of questions that were raised about the proportion of witnesses as the committee allocates them. And we have felt during the previous session that the request that we've made for better witness representation on the committee has not gone quite the way that we would like it to. So we hope that during conversations and deliberations, as requests are made, that you would take note of that. We also had a request from a member of the committee to be perhaps more promptly notified as to when hearings and markups were to take place. We all understand the brevity of some of these sessions, but not to miss the point that a better notification process we think would be very helpful to our side. And Mr. Doggett has asked me to yield to him for 1 minute, which I think this is the appropriate moment to do.
Oh, okay. Well, let me first say, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the necktie. I was very pleased when my staff told me that you had a necktie that, for me personally, given some of the differing perspectives we had, that it was not a necktie party. But beyond that, I wanted to just say something positive about your change in Rule 8 on home visiting. I've served through 3 Republican chairs of the subcommittee as ranking member. Each of them has joined in an expression of bipartisan support for this program. There was some debate a year or 2 back about whether it was within the Commerce Committee jurisdiction. I think it's good that you're noting it's clearly within the jurisdiction of this committee and of the Human Resources Subcommittee in particular. This program expires at the end of this fiscal year, and so I hope that it's an indication that we can continue to work on a bipartisan basis to see one of the only truly evidence-based programs extended to try to help families be stronger and be self-sufficient.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the rules expanded the jurisdiction of the Oversight Subcommittee by removing the restriction that limits all matters considered by the subcommittee to existing law. Would you take a moment to explain the intent behind this change?
Sure. First, let me thank you again for working with us on modernizing these rules. We'll take it under advisement. We work hard to be fair in our hearing markups, and we'll handle all those witnesses. We'll work with you moving forward. And so the motivation behind this rule is to conform our rules to current practice. We neither refer nor mark up legislation in the Oversight Subcommittee, and that'll continue to be the case. Committees are directed in-house rules as part of their oversight responsibilities to examine conditions and circumstances that may indicate the necessity or desirability of enacting new or additional legislation. So we want to continue the practice of allowing our oversight team to examine legislative solutions based on their oversight findings, particularly in the tax administration case. There's no need to have an artificial line between the problems they find and the solutions they recommend. Overall, I don't anticipate there will be an expansion of the types of bills that have been handled by the Oversight Subcommittee staff in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The committee now proceed to consideration of the committee rules for the 115th Congress. Without objection, the rules will be considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Committee rules for the 115th Congress were distributed in advance along with the green sheet explaining the changes to the rules for this committee. I'll now turn to Alison Halatai, General Counsel and Parliamentarian, to provide a description of the proposed changes to the rules. I ask that members hold their questions until after her presentation. Ms. Halatai.
Chairman Brady, Ranking Member Neal, and members of the committee, I will provide a brief overview of the proposed changes to the rules of the Committee on Ways and Means. First, the committee's regular meeting day under Rule 2 would be designated as each Wednesday that the House is in session, rather than the second Wednesday of each month. Rule 7 would include the provision of information to the public as one of the purposes of the committee website. Rule 8 would include updates to subcommittee ratios and jurisdiction as follows. The Oversight Subcommittee's jurisdiction would no longer be limited to existing law. The description of the Human Resources Subcommittee's jurisdiction would be adjusted to remove low-income energy assistance, which is not within the committee's jurisdiction, and to add home visiting and Title V of the Social Security Act, which are within the committee's jurisdiction. Finally, the Subcommittee on Tax Policy ratio would be adjusted to add 1 Democrat seat, bringing that subcommittee's ratio into closer alignment with the overall committee ratio. Next, the procedures relating to subcommittee referral and discharge would be updated to eliminate unnecessary paperwork and procedures. Rule 21 would be modified to provide a mechanism for the chairman to make electronic, unofficial transcripts available to committee members upon request. And finally, the old Rule 22, which provides procedures related to the outdated concept of conceptual markups, would be eliminated, and Rule 23 would be renumbered accordingly. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the proposed changes to the rules? Does anyone wish to strike the last word? Are there any amendments to the rules? There being no
Thank you.
So there being no questions, amendments, or further action, I'll now recognize Mr. Johnson for the purpose of offering a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee adopt the rules of the Committee on Ways and Means for the 115th Congress.
Questions on the motion to approve the rules of the Committee on Ways and Means for the 115th Congress? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the rules of the Committee on Ways and Means are adopted. There being no further business before the committee stands adjourned.
Great job.